All right, guys, I watched this video for Thursday, April 20th. Just like last night, I want to remind everybody our Inflection Points Part 2 webinar is tomorrow night. I will put the link to register. It's free. We really enjoy putting these webinars on. We don't do it that often, but we really felt the need for a Part 2 to our last Inflection Points webinar. We got great feedback from that webinar. A lot of people, actually, I had a guy on Twitter, StockTwits, basically tell me Inflection Points changed his trading, like improved his trading for life, and that's great to hear. But that also made me nervous that, hey, we need to dive a little deeper into this. So we've got a part 2 coming up. We hope to see you all there. You can the links to register either be in the description to this video and or in the emails and my Twitter and StockTwits feed. So you should be able to find the links to register for the webinar. Again, it's free, 7:30 tomorrow night, Thursday night, and first 100 people gonna have this available for you. Well, okay, I'll be drinking it. I don't know about the rest of you. I don't free to the first 50 maybe. All right. Again, I'm not sure how to figure out how to pour it for you, but I'll have some at least on my end. All right. Anyway, long story short, we're looking forward to the webinar tomorrow night. Quick look at the SPY. Again, not a lot of action. Just in a sideways chop. You know, red day, green day, flat day, red day, but still basically sideways. All right, so since we have no shock events, let's glance at IWM as well. IWM was fairly strong on an intraday basis before kind of rolling over near the end of the day. SPY, if it matters to you, was certainly weaker on an intraday basis, right? Either way, we're just going to go ahead and trade. Here is the watch list I put together for Thursday. Let's start with SKLN. Very strong close, all right? If you go to intraday, this thing had, from 215 all the way up to almost 260 and closing pretty strong, so it held up pretty well. Something might be going on here. Lower float stock, definitely want to watch it. If you look to the left over today's high, which would be 260, you look to the left, there's just not a lot in the way. This thing has proven itself in the past to have big intraday moves. As a day trader like myself, I look for stuff like that. If I see a stock that, like on this day, went from 296 to 605 in one session, even on an intraday basis, the thing doubled, right? And it's coming out of nice support now, so this is a pretty good candidate for a nice move tomorrow. We'll see. I only take these with a proper intraday setup. SNGX, you know what? I put this on watch, had massive volume, but ended up closing near its lows. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there's no reason not to just maybe have it on a chart, but pretty much everyone who traded the thing's underwater, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of remove it. Bear with me one second. SNG. I'll put it on a chart, but I'm going to take that off my watch list. So let me just move on, right? CBLI, man, crazy strong. We had this on watch come in today. I said I think it needed to come in another day. When it looked, I think like this, let's see, the early high was 356, and then it kind of had a lower high. Yeah, I think I called this, I put out in the room that 353 with a 20-cent stop, or over 353. So that would be 354, looking for a push to the high of day with a 20-cent stop, which would put a stop at 333. That idea worked, right? It went through the high of day, chopped around, and then kind of flagged, and then finally started moving, then had a big pop, then flagged, and actually was on the mic this time of day and pointed out this flag. I said, hey guys, over this candle right here, over 428, this thing might really gets another upside break, and it did. So even if you just took it there, you had a nice trade. But my initial idea was 354 with a stop at 334. It never did stop out. And I don't want to paint the picture that I killed it in this trade, because I didn't. I only made a few bucks in this thing. I had one trade that made my day, but it wasn't this one. And that's because of the nature of the way I trade. I would have needed this thing to break the high of day and then start to squeeze, which I thought it would, but it chopped around for a while and then got a little bit, got going a little better, then chopped it, and then, finally started to get some speed up in this area here. But whenever they take out a high of day like I'm looking for, and it had a huge move a couple days ago, right? So I'm looking for this high of day break to squeeze. And so it moves up a little bit and it comes back to my entry. I'll just back out. And I easily could have played this again. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned it here. I said, hey, this is holding up well. It still might have a chance. It still might have a chance. And then again, I mentioned it here on this flag. So the call, the entry and stop that I gave ended up giving a huge profit for people that I want to say maybe trade better than I do. They trade more patiently, like they let the stops work. It is not how I'm wired. So in this particular case, I didn't catch this big move, but the call that I gave out, the idea with the trigger and stop I gave in the room, certainly did work to people that are, again, trade differently than I do. I am 100% defensive minded, defense oriented trader. Okay, that's me, because I would rather miss out on a big move, or as I just showed you, get in on a couple other flags, later if it's still proving itself, than I would to end up having taken a loss. Because I always say I trade for one reason and one reason only, and that is to make money. If I take a trade and it gets below my entry, I'm not making money. So I either reevaluate and re-enter if it makes sense later, but I don't average down, and I don't hang out while underwater. I'd rather be in cash where I can evaluate everything with a clear head. Hope that makes sense. All right, anyway, so that's CBLI with that huge move today again. Now, it's stupid extended, but it still goes back on watch, all right? It needs to be on watch for the next several days. DFFN, this is extremely obscure, all right? But it did trade probably, 3 weeks ago maybe? It did trade 7.5 million shares, its biggest volume day, going back pretty far here. And you can see on less volume, on 2.5 million shares, this thing made a crazy intraday move. Then it put in a lower high. Now it's starting to put in higher highs. Well, there's a lower. It's starting to put in higher lows, I should say. I am not in love with this one. I want to be really clear about that. But yesterday, this thing spiked to 320, and I'll show you on 15-minute candles. And then today, almost 320, and just did nothing. But I don't know. You look at this over 320, it's kind of interesting. It almost feels like with this volume spike yesterday that maybe something's brewing. Extremely obscure, and I want to emphasize I am not in love with this one at all, because I'm a big fan of trading stuff after recent high relative volume. Is 3 weeks ago recent enough? Really not really for me. So that kind of goes on a chart, but unless it shows crazy unusual volume, I probably won't do anything with it. All right, hopefully I was clear enough about that. NADL, this one I had on Bounce Watch today. I had a nice trade in this one today. As it was breaking above this base, it got super interesting. So I actually was on the mic doing the morning review at the time, so it was kind of cool because I was on the mic, and when it started to come above this base, I told everybody, hey, this one might break the high of day, and I liked it right in here above this little base, 175, 176. And the reason I liked it, and I'll just pan out a little bit, because you had that huge move just about a week ago, right? You had the gap up and then a secondary move, and we talk about being in the recent high flyers or the in-play stocks or having those on watch. So you had this crazy 2-day move from whatever it started at, 70-something cents, then it goes over 280, closes strong, then the next day it goes to almost 4, okay? So that's crazy, a crazy type move. So then you look at it the next day, it kind of gave an intraday cup and handle and never broke out. Then the next day, it never broke its early high. I'm a big fan of watching to see if they break their early high, okay? So the day after the huge 2-day move, here's its early high, 10 minutes in, never broke it. The very next day, 10 minutes in, put in its high of the day. The next day, which was yesterday, put in its high in the opening 5 minutes. Today, put in its high in the opening 5 minutes, but held that 2-day support. So when I saw it start to come up, I got long there. And you know what? We pushed through 2. I was a big seller over 2 because, hey, I thought we caught a really nice entry there. And you know what? Look at this. It closes strong. Closes strong. So this one is really interesting for a continuation day. I like the fact that this thing makes nice percentage moves, and we've got a nice green day, a nice bounce off the 20-day moving average. So we're going to watch that for a follow-through day on that bounce tomorrow. STAF, let me zoom in a little bit here. Gapped up, I think, on earnings about 4 days ago. Came back down below the breakout. The breakout area is basically through a buck, right? Gapped up above it. Came back down, and now it's kind of flirting with taking out $1 to the upside again, closing at $1.02. Not in love with this one, but it's a lower float stock, and if you go to 15-minute candles, it does get kind of interesting up around $1.06 or $1.07, right? This one might retake the highs of, if it gets there, might retake the highs of this gap up day, which was $1.32. So, even though it's a little bit obscure, I want to watch STAF, FSAM. Really nice volume for this stock. Still, it's still not 1 million shares. That spike right there. So I think this is a lower float stock. I'm just watching for a potential follow through today, tomorrow. IMMY had this really nice move from 240 to whatever it was, 470, 469, right? And you can kind of argue that you're flagging. If you picture a line here, a person less lazy than myself would actually take the time and draw these lines for you. But I'm trying to get through these videos and start my evening. So This one is certainly interesting if you can picture this trend line break. Let's look at it on 15s. Yeah, a nice strong close at the end of the day, but it also got choppy. Certainly maybe over 425. That might be enough to push it through that recent high. So keep that one on watch. That's IMMY. It's definitely something going on there. And lastly, GSAT, which had this pop. And look at this, a really tight flag. Kind of quiet inside day, then today inside of yesterday's. So if we break this flag to the upside, it might end up ripping through too. And that's it. We're going to add some gappers in the morning as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Hope to see you in that webinar too. Make sure you get registered.